Hello, and today we're going to work on this intermediate sketching exercise. As you can see, there's a lot going on with this one, so that's why it's an intermediate drawing. There's curves and arcs, and there's all kinds of different constraints in here. So it's really important that you follow along, and you might have to do a little bit of troubleshooting even if you get it correct. I'm going to show you a couple things as we go along that should help you, but you should always make sure that you're checking the directions so that you got it correct before you move on. So we're going to practice our sketching skills, and we're going to use our construction geometry and mirror a sketch, so that'll be new for us, and then we're going to make sure that it's fully defined before we're finished. So we don't want to draw directly from this. That's why the step-by-step process is here. So we're going to start here, and we always have to create a new drawing, or a new part, sorry. So I'm going to click over here and go to the drop down and click New Part. And then I want to start a sketch. And then in this sketch, we're going to pick this XY plane. And it says that we're supposed to create this vertical construction line and then a horizontal and a vertical object line. And we're going to draw it just like this. The important thing is that this vertical line should go on that vertical axis, and that this right here, this point, should actually be that center point on our plane. So I'm going to start with a line tool, and then I'm going to go over here to construction, and then I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to make it sure that it snaps to this Y axis. So I click there and I go straight down until I hit that center point, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to toggle off my construction line. And then I'm going to make sure that my line is horizontal along that X axis. Then I'm going to make sure this goes vertical, so I'll see 90 degrees and I'll see that perpendicular constraint there. And I click that, and then I right click and I hit escape or cancel. And now I have my lines. It's kind of hard to see this one right here, but this line exists right here, this line exists right here, and this line exists right here. Then I'm going to move this so I can see a little bit more of my screen. And I'm going to draw a 3-point arc. So the arc tool is up here, and the default is a 3-point arc. So I click the 3-point arc, and I want to make sure that I start right here at this point. I'm going to go up, and I find that it's best to go at a little bit of an angle. And then I'm going to go, and I'm just going to bring this in sort of towards the middle, and kind of give it that sort of curve right here, sort of a larger curve, so it has you know, a little bit of curve to it. So now I'm going to hit escape. And I'm going to hit the mirror key. Alright, so the mirror tool right here brings up this menu. The first thing you have to do is select the geometry that you want to mirror. So it's these 3 lines right here. Then I click on the mirror line button, and then I go over here to my vertical construction line that I created, and I click that button. Then I click apply, and you'll see that it mirrored on both sides. And I click done. I will see these constraints. If I click on this, I see all these symmetrical constraints that Inventor put in for me. And those are great because if I go and if I toggle these off, if I make a change to one side, the other side will follow. I can change the height of it, I can change the arc, I can move my, my centers for my arcs, and I can reshape my object as I go along. So it gives you a lot of control, and you're going to make sure that both sides do the same thing. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit so I have a little bit of space, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make a different kind of arc. So I'm going to click the drop down, I'm going to go to the second option, and that's the tangent arc. So this is going to make a tangent. Looks like I already had something selected, so I'm going to hit escape so that I'm not selecting anything. I'm going to click on the tangent arc, and this is going to make an arc that is tangent to the first point that I select. So I select my first endpoint and I select my other endpoint, and that made a tangent arc across the two. So we can see the shape, sort of, taking shape, if you will. I'm going to hit escape, and you can see that I can modify the overall size of it. And I'm noticing that these two aren't actually connected, and this is a problem that some students will have. So I'm going to use my coincident constraint, which is this first one in the upper left corner, to make this point and this point meet so that they are coincident with one another. So I'm going to hit escape. Now I can kind of start stretching my object to see if I get the results I'm looking for. And that's pretty good. So the next step that it says here, so we did this mirror and we did this arc. and we did the whole mirror here, and we have our construction line to go about it. Now we made sure that those are tangent to both vertices. I'm going to go back over just to make sure I have it coincident, but let me make sure that this side is tangent. And I can turn on my constraints so that I can see them, and I see a tangent here and a symmetric one, but I don't see the tangent over here. Most likely it doesn't need it, because if these lines are symmetrical to each other and this side is tangent, then this side is automatically going to be tangent. So I'm going to try to apply it here, and I'm going to see that in my message here it says it's going to over constrain the sketch, meaning that Inventor knows and it doesn't need it. So I'm going to hit cancel. Now I'm going to go back over to my instructions, right? Add a tangent if it's necessary. It's not necessary. So I go to my next one, and I want to make a coincident constraint between the center point of my arc and the top end point of this construction line. So I go back over, and I can see the end point of my construction line here, and I can see this center point there. I'm going to hit escape so that I'm able to get out of whatever tool. And the easiest way to do this is to take this end point, you get that little green dot, and just stretch it up until it drops on that one. Now those two are coincident with one another. Alternatively, I'm going to hit Control Z to undo it. I can use my coincident constraint, and then I can click one point and then the other point. And what happens here is it reshapes my object. So that's why I like that drag method better. So I hit escape to get out of my tool, and I'm going to turn off my constraints so that I can modify my geometry a little bit. And you'll notice that my lines are purple, so I can modify my lines by clicking and dragging the geometry around until I get the shape that I want. And, get it roughly the size that I want it to be. Right? It doesn't need to be perfect, but I can kind of reshape it until it's close to where it should be. Right? Now I go back over, and it says to add dimensions. Now the order you add dimensions will affect how the actual sketch behaves. It should rescale, but I found on this one it doesn't always scale properly. So let's add the first dimension. I like to add this bottom dimension of 125, and it's from this line to this line. Remember, this is two separate lines. We can't just drag the line. So I can go from endpoint to endpoint. I can go line to line. I can go line to endpoint, or any combination of those. So I'm just going to click these two lines. Then I'm going to drag it down, and I'm going to click again, and I'm going to type 125. And I hit enter. And then my sketch disappears, so I hit the front and it'll zoom out. I can always use my scroll wheel to zoom out. And I have this one base of 125. The next one I'm going to add in is going to be this 200. And I'm going to type 200 after I place that. And you'll see that my light bulb kind of gets to be a little bit big and, bulgy, if you will. And that's okay. I'm going to go and take this line right here at the bottom. Doesn't matter if I do the right side or the left side. I'm going to click and drag this over, and this value is 50. After I place it, 50, and I can see this thing taking shape. Then I want to go and add this one of 75. So it's really close, but I want to make sure that it's 75. And then I want to click this arc. I want to make sure that I have the line is green and I don't have that little green dot, right? I click the line and I place this dimension and I type 125. You'll notice that my center of my arc moves to the right place. So now I have this shape just like it shows here in the picture. So now the next one is I need to offset this outside arc, right? I just want that arc, and it needs to be a distance of 40. In our case, 40 inches. So I'm going to hit the offset button. And now I have my loop select. By default, my loop select is on, so it wants to select the whole thing, but I only want that top arc. So I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to click on offset again. I right click, and then I go down to this loop select, and I uncheck that box. And when I do that, you'll notice that only the one arc is selected. So I click on that line to select it, and then I hit the enter key, and you can see that I'm maneuvering it in. I want to pull it down, and I want to type 40 and place my arc where it belongs, right? I'll hit 40 and then enter, and it'll place my arc where it belongs. So now I still have a fully constrained sketch, right? It knows where this arc wants to be and everything else. And now I can go ahead and I can draw my next step. So I go here and I need to sketch this vertical line. This vertical line should be vertical, right? So it should be vertical and have that vertical constraint. So it's going to be parallel to this one. And it should be closer to the center line than this endpoint for it to work, easily. So I click the line tool. I make sure I'm not in my construction geometry, and I'm not, which is good. I'm going to click this point, and then I'm going to go down vertically, and I'm going to click the other point. The length of the line doesn't matter. I can hit escape, or I can right click and hit cancel in order to cancel out of this tool. Then I'm going to take my arc tool, my tangent arc tool, and I want to start at my line and I want to go to my arc. All right, if I do it the other way around, it kind of does some weird unintended things. So I hit escape to get out of that tool. And then I'm going to go to my tangent tool and I'm going to make these two arcs tangent with one another. All right, you'll notice I get that nice curve, but this curve in this line is going to be purple for a little bit because it's not fully constrained. So now, once I'm happy with this, I've got that tangent on both sides. Right, I can check it. I got a tangent on this side, I got a tangent on that side. Once I've got that, I'm good to go. I want to mirror this. So I click my mirror tool, I select the arc and I select the line. I click the mirror line button and then I select my center construction line and I hit apply. And I hit done. Now you notice these two endpoints don't meet, right? Well, we want them to meet. So I can either drag one over or I can click on my coincident. For this one, the coincident tool works perfectly. So I just click the two endpoints and now they're coincident with one another. And because this side is tangent and this is a mirror, these sides will be tangent as well. If you want to just double check, you can click on the tangent button and click the two arcs to make sure that you get this over constrained message. Great. Now we're going to go and we're going to do another tangent arc. And this time I'm going to go from my bottom line here, right, the bottom endpoint, to my other endpoint that's mirrored on the other side. And I have a tangent constraint on one side. I'm going to double check that I have tangent constraint on both sides. And I do. Right. And sorry, I skipped a couple slides here. So now I mirror those, and that's coincident, and that's tangent, right? And those are mirrored. I put this bottom arc on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw this particular rectangle. I'm going to do a 2-point center rectangle. This is going to be important. So I go up here to my rectangle tool, I click the drop down, and I go down to the third option. It's a 2-point center rectangle. And I want to start right here on my vertical center line. And then I click, and then I drag, and I click. Right? Now, I want to go ahead back and take a look. So that's coincident with that construction line, right? It's coincident with that construction line, so that's locked in there. And then I want to add the dimensions as shown, right? The order of these doesn't matter as much, but you want to make sure that you've got your coincident there and that this is on that line, right? And these don't, they're not as much of a problematic thing if you don't have things 100% right, but you do want to kind of check it. So I'm going to click this arc, and this arc should be 40. So I type 40. Then I want to click this arc, and I click again, and I make it 15. So now that's there. That's good. I want to click the center point for this arc and the center point for this arc and drag it out, and I type 100 and hit enter. And then I want to make this rectangle, the length of the rectangle, 80. And then I want to make the height of the rectangle 20. And then I want to make the distance between the bottom line of the rectangle and the bottom line of my object 25. Now I have my whole object, it's fully constrained. I can see that down here in the bottom right corner that it's fully constrained. If it wasn't fully constrained, this would be, some of the lines would be purple, and it would also tell me how many dimensions are needed in that corner. So I can right click and hit escape or hit the escape key. And then I go over here to my sketch 1 and I right click and I click region properties. Now, I should be able to select this area right here. So basically none of the inner portions are selected, just the outer portions. Then I hit calculate and I should have 24,906.823 inches squared, or 24906.823. as my area. If I've got that, then I want to take a screenshot by hitting Control and the Show Windows button and turn it into Schoology, right? I need a full screen screenshot from y'all. If it doesn't match, or you have this area on the inside that is also selected and you can't not select it, then you're going to want to check your constraints. Most likely what's going on from what I've seen is people have more than one arc, right? So you might have to delete one of the arcs and then check the constraints on it to make sure that it goes coincident and everything else. That usually happens there. Make sure that everything is tangent. If your values don't match, missing a tangent in one here is a major culprit. And also check your dimensions. Once you're finished and you've handed that in, you can hit Finish Sketch, and I like to just kind of zoom out for myself so it looks nice and neat. And then I go over here to File, Save, right, and click this little floppy disk icon, and then I'm going to type Intermediate Sketch. And there's my sketch. Make sure you refer back to this video or the PowerPoint if you have any questions or issues. Thanks again.